You're listening to Parasearch Radio. News, views, and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey, this is Jeff Belanger, author, researcher for Ghost Adventures, host of New England Legends, and of course, beer drinker. And you're listening to PSH Radio with Sam and Carl on the Parasearch Network. They're broadcasting to you from Old England. You can tell by the accents.
Good evening, guys. We are back for another week, of course. Don't know why I'm doing so nice voice. Anyway, obviously, you know, we're straight in again, obviously, as usual, like we do. And obviously, I have to announce my co-host first, who sadly is losing his voice. So,
hi, Sam.
See, I didn't do the long mouthy introduction for you this week.
No, that's true. That's true. Last week it was like a monologue.
I don't know what happened last week.
No.
I was all like, you know, full sentences. I don't know what was going on.
That's cool. That's cool. I am here. I don't know how long the voice is going to last, but I am here.
You need to stop singing.
You don't want to hear me sing.
That's probably why you've got a bad voice.
Nobody wants to hear me sing.
Anyway, we're obviously joined by two interesting guests this evening, which I shall introduce in a moment. We've been waiting a while to speak to these guys because they seem really cool people, guys. So I hope, obviously, you think they're cool as well. I will try to pronounce their last name right. So obviously we'll get straight into it. So everybody, I would like to introduce you to Viktor and Lynda Salazar.
That is correct.
You did it correct.
That is correct. Hello everyone.
Hello.
You said it perfectly.
So how are you guys this evening?
We're great.
We're doing good.
Excited to be on. Thanks for having us.
Happy to talk to the folks in the UK, or as everybody says, over the pond. I never got that reference until I lived up here in the UK area. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm seeing myself in the UK area.
That'll be in the near future. Hopefully. But we're wonderful, fantastic. It's a pretty warm day, so can't complain. And we're excited. We're excited to discuss whatever you want to ask.
Yes.
Hello, Carl.
We're sorry to hear about Carl not feeling so well.
We're sorry to hear about Carl, so we won't. We understand.
No. Honestly, I'm okay. I'm just occasionally I will have to just cough a little bit. So I'll quiet my microphone while I cough a bit. It's okay. I'm feeling all right.
Awesome. Sounds good. So yeah.
So, so you guys have obviously been in the paranormal industry for quite a while, haven't you?
Yes, we have.
Very long while.
It's been, we actually started when the whole, I guess you want to say, it was accidentally for us. What
I could say is that we were kind of pretty much for ourselves. We're pretty much kind of, it's weird to say, but we were kind of born into it. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by born into it is that our culture is filled with the whole Latin folklore and all this sort of deal. So when you're in the family, you're just immediately aware or awakened to spirits and ghosts and all this sort of deal. And we started experiencing things that, of course, obviously, individually, and, grew up, You fast forward a couple of years, and we found ourselves working in what they call now the paranormal field. And, it's been quite a while. And, we didn't know. Wasn't something we expected.
Yeah, it just
really,
happened.
Really interesting. Because even though we had paranormal experiences, both together and individually, it was something that was just not on our plate. We didn't see ourselves here. and that's when it kind of rebooted, during our time, that's when you had Paranormal State and you had Taps and you had Ghost Adventures come out. And it was during that little period, the beginning of it in the mid period, because we had the Warrens, of course, and sightings and all those in the past that we grew up with.
Yes.
And so for us, it was literally a contest win for an overnight stay for a paranormal quote unquote investigation. And long and behold, the rest is history. It's all out there. So, but no, we've explored, quite a bit.
So where was the venue of your overnight stay that you won?
Our overnight stay was in San Antonio, Texas, and it was at a location called Victoria's Black Swan Inn.
Yeah.
And we were there for 5+ years investigating. You're talking about literally
living there, practically
living at the location, and it wasn't all peaches and cream. As the TV shows, for entertainment portray. And so that's where it was. It was an overnight stay, Halloween night, our anniversary. And I didn't go with expectations. We went in and we just I loved the house. I love the home. I love all plantation homes, anything old history. And so we went, and we actually went a week prior to the actual investigation, and met the owner and went in, and it was pretty interesting. Immediately I felt when I stepped upon the land, it was as if I went backwards in time, and kind of like in a time bubble was pretty much wrapped around it. And that location is notorious for events happening, such as the Battle of Salado Creek, a bloody battle between Texas Rangers and the Mexicans, and beforehand there was the Comanche Indians, indigenous to that area, and just pretty much its history repeats itself when it comes to the very macabre of it. The history.
It's the same repeat over and over, where
pretty much residual
tragic death happens.
Yeah, where tragedy, some big great tragedy happens after so much time. And so that's pretty much what I've always known, what's behind the veil, and seen through it, hear it, whatever you want to call it. And I went in again with a recorder, and I was just dictating my whole situation and experience. And as I was coming down, we woke up. We stayed there in the morning. We got a little certificate. You survived the night. That was it. We're like, okay, good. Went back home. Upon analysis, I received a deep voice that said, "I hate you." And it was in the lower frequency, in the lower vibration, beyond the human voice.
Yeah.
And it was one of the lowest. And literally, my reaction to that was I sunk into myself, and literal tears just welled up in my eyes, because I don't know if it was fear, I don't know if it was sadness, I don't know if it was just, wow, I'm experiencing this, what is this? And sure enough, there were other things that were recorded, and stuff as we got priest in a dress, we got go to hell, why don't you? And so lots of serious things like that were happening.
So a lot of negativity.
A lot of negativity, yes. A lot of negativity. And so it was very opposed to us being there.
Yes.
To say the least.
And obviously that was all this was happening on your first visit.
First night, yes. First night.
And you said you've investigated it over and over again. Have you since?
Since, no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Since that night, that's when we pretty much, when I shared the evidence, we were asked back, and that's when we just pretty much stayed there. And what was interesting was I began to validate a lot of things that were going on, in history, the people that lived there. And so it kind of just blew wide open the door for a repressed gift, if you will, to come back in full circle. Because in my father's family, it's a line of what we call curanderos, which in English is healers. And they're very connected, to the other side. And my great-grandmother was a seer. She was fantastic at what she did. And also my uncle. And and then the mantle pretty much fell on me. So, yeah.
Okay. That's it. That's really interesting, particularly about the negativity side of it, because of being your first time and the way the way you captured it on and obviously when you were just recording. So that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy because also when we're just listening to it, a lot of people don't realize when the shows were out there, when we got on the shows, is that this thing had been happening for quite some time already. So the way I like to see it is because of the location's negativity already been saturated and all that tragedy, the history's tragedy of that place, or the land, I should say, it was pretty much a battleground for myself and a spiritual conflict within that, when it was almost like, okay, I'm meeting this negative entity from a prior time, because we had already been having these kinds of experiences, because myself and Lynn were very active at the time in the church. And we were both ordained. I was ordained deacon through the church, as well as Lynda, deaconess.
Yes.
And so there was that battle there,
So do you think that because of obviously being ordained, both of you being ordained and with the church, do you think the negativity was related to you because of that?
I think it had a little part. It played a role. It was, yes, it definitely played a role. And of course, there was a lot of other things.
I think it played a role, not only just for us, the negativity. I think it also, some of it was not towards us, but I think some of it also was towards the residual that would happen there, because you have to look at the history of the place. The place had numerous tragic things happening. So you have so many things happening. And it was kind of funny that certain things were connected, just like when they said priest in the dress. We later found out a person that was there during the investigation, they were going to be a priest. They were actually in a monastery, and they just didn't fulfill it through. And it was kind of crazy to see that this person was in shock when they heard it, because it was kind of like taunting the person, like you were right there.
And you can honestly say that also too, the elements were there, or that, because here you have us, coming in already with the conflict of battle with spirituality, and then coming into this whole new world to where there is an actual quote unquote scientific paranormal exploration in which we knew of, but not the whole technicalities of it all, such as all these machines and things like that to validate certain experiences. And it's so with that combined with what was already there, and us kind of, I would say, you go into the darkness with being a beacon of light, of course it's not going to want you there. Of course it's not going to want it, but you find the balance in the positive and the negative. And so it just kind of snowballed to a whole bunch of things, because we became, we were asked back, we were told to come back and stay and do investigating and all this stuff. And between that, we were also investigating other places all around Texas and and outside Texas. And we soon discovered how these devices would work and how they were, accurate, inaccurate, and that sort of thing. And we were just spectators, and then we became participants. And then after a while, we actually just kind of went under the hand of what I like to call the entity tyranny, which you are in this zombie state light, and you just kind of experience a lot of bad things. And but we certainly learned to ground ourselves. But for me personally, it became, people were flocking, as they do these days to the locations to investigate and all this. For me, I just felt and like the performing monkey, because I was like the conduit to the place. I was the antenna to the place. And because I didn't have any prior knowledge to how to ground myself, how to use these gifts and abilities, it was a very scary time for myself, and for my wife. And, that's when things kind of just spiraled out of control. And of course, gained the attention of the seekers, the naysayers, and everywhere around, the televisions, the local news, that sort of thing. Yeah. And so it wasn't, it wasn't a pleasurable thing. However, it is what it is. And we've since come back from that. We took a 2-year sabbatical from the whole paranormal field. And we just probably came on a couple of radio shows here and there, popped up, and just to kind of share our truth, because what was portrayed in the media, it's entertainment, and you can't put 5+ years into a 30-minute segment. And
not only that,
and you're made to tell a story.
Yeah.
They are for entertainment purposes, and there's the power of editing, so you don't get that the full story. They piece it together. So you're gonna get what you see, and you don't have a say. So then when you see it on TV, people think, oh, and then people that aren't open-minded, or people that don't want to look further into it, and don't look at all angles, they will just hit that wall and they'll say, oh, wow, it was like this, or it's like that movie, The Entity, or it's like the X. It's like, no. It's a lot deeper. Yeah. And not only that, it's not so glamorous. It's not as glamorous.
I think one of the key things, as you were saying about, because it was like at the birth of these types of shows came on, like you say, Paranormal States, TAPS, Ghost Adventurers, they all sort of had the same sort of basing around it. It was all about the negativity. It was all about the scary demonology side of it, and all that sort of stuff. And that's how these sort of programs sort of started off initially, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. Well, no, not really. No, because if you remember, if we go back, if you remember, it did start off with everything was like this. Yes, it did start kind of like, oh, everything is a demon, or everything's this. And so we knew that wasn't true. Being ordained deacons, not everything's a demon. And believe me, if you encounter a demon, believe me, you're not going to just be keeping and continuing doing what you're doing. You're going to take a sabbatical, and you're going, I hate to say it, but people in the paranormal won't even understand you. When there's a lot of people out there doing this by themselves when they do encounter something so evil in the present, so to the point where it scares the hell out of you. Sorry if I can't say that, but the fear is so much suffocating. It's worse than probably being in a prison filled of murderers. That's how bad it feels. And it feels suffocating. And it's a fear that gives you that you feel that you have to look behind your back at all times. And that's just something that people will never understand until they witness it themselves, or they tap into it. I never hope they do. I don't wish it on my enemies.
But that's good. But it's like I was saying, the premise of these shows pretty much led to it's a demon.
Yeah, but
but I'm saying that's how the shows kind of particularly started.
Yeah.
For to kind of, I guess, and this is just my opinion. I guess it's to get the viewers watching. Sometimes.
I think that is the case about it. I think these shows had to have some sort of hook to get people to watch, to get people to watch time and time again.
Yes.
Speaking to some of the guys that have appeared on the shows, even down to the ones that were on the shows regularly, they admit that at the early stages of the shows, it was more different than it was 10 years later.
Oh yeah. But very much so.
Yeah,
very much so.
Ghost Adventures is a prime example. Is they started off where everything was like, as we kind of joke over in the UK, hashtag it's a demon. And then things obviously then started to happen behind the scenes in the show where these guys were getting affected, and they started to then slowly change direction to a different way, as a show does. It progresses and it goes up and down and it flows, and people watch it for different reasons. And I think that's the case with most of the shows, particularly ones that have been going a long time.
Exactly.
We've had a question in the chat room from Paul Rook, and he says, "What do you think demons are?"
Who wants to take that?
That's yours.
For me personally, demons are not the little red devil with the horns and the spear on a can of ham. It is, for me, a demon is a lower level energy that can pretty much break down a person's will or try to, by using certain influences on that individual's life, such as drugs or some sort of addictive habit to where it's harming or breaking down the individual's physical body, mental state. So that's what I see as a demon, or as that can be categorized as demon. We have, you have that stigma out there to where the demon has hooves and wings and is fallen from the sky, and it's a fire-breathing demon. And that's not what it is. We, being in the church, being in the four walls of the church, we have seen certain things. I've seen certain things to where people were influenced by that lower level entity that we all call demons. So I just think demon's a word, and I've actually seen 2 cases of actual demon infestation, manifestation, possession, if you will. And believe me, clearly it's not what a lot of people think it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like to say that demons are just like, the best way I always do it in the analogy is of human beings. You have folks that are mischievous, those are the ones that you're like, and then you have the ones that go into that next level where, goes into the mind of they could be a serial killer, and then it just gets higher and escalates, just as you have good in this world, you have evil in this world. It's a yin and yang. And I think it goes into it does go into different steps. It's not straight on, full on, as people think right away. A demon is like the Exorcist, or like it's Lucifer, or it's Satan himself. No, there's a whole army camp.
There's different, definitely, if we want to go into demonology, there's different levels that you're taught. There's different categories for different ones. And again, they're not with the wings or nothing like that. So I think each one has its particular category to be placed in. Now they're very real. in terms of the manifestations in a particular case. However, there, as Lynda was saying, you have that balance, do we not? We have the good, we have the evil, you have the sun, you have the moon, ocean upon the sky. So there's the yin, there's the yang. So there, anything that someone will come up to us and say, oh, this is happening, and I don't understand why, and we investigate, and we thoroughly investigate, and we realize that no, it's not a demon. However, it's the residue of someone's past that was already evil, to begin with. As Lynda said, a serial killer's mind, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean that's kind of hopefully answers that question.
Yeah, no. It's a very, very good way of explaining it, because I think a lot of people out there they judge it by what they see on TV films. So they do think
absolutely
horned little things wandering around with red eyes and everything like that, and that's what they jump to the conclusion of. That's what a demon is.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really, really good explanation, just for everybody listening to. And thanks for the question, Paul.
Cool.
So anyway, we'll move obviously on a bit, guys. So obviously you've said that obviously you investigated one location, and you've investigated many more locations in Texas. So what type of locations have you investigated in Texas?
Oh, wow. We've investigated insane asylums, abandoned insane asylums, hospitals, old hospitals, some old homes. And we've also ventured out of Texas.
There were some private cases.
There were some private investigations and private cases that we did and worked on. But mostly in Texas, specifically, they were hospitals and
we did that
asylums,
small ghost town.
Oh, and also we did a whole ghost town.
It was like a little bar
in Helena, Texas. So yeah, we did a whole ghost town, and it literally is a little ghost town. You have the houses and everything, that they're all abandoned now, and I believe they still do tours. I'm not too sure. But we did that one, and so yeah, we've.
And then after that, we ventured out, and we've done Gettysburg. We've done the Lizzie Borden.
Yeah, Lizzie Borden, all around Gettysburg, Airbnb. Yeah, you name it, we've been there.
New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Yeah, we've been in New Orleans.
So yeah, and you know what? And it's quite interesting, because with each region or each place that we find ourselves, it's very different. It's very different on how people see or view the paranormal. And you have to, you respect that, and you kind of go with it with your knowledge and what you know, and combine the two, and it makes for a great investigation. And but yeah, definitely there's different mindsets, on how they view it. But yeah, I think the scariest place for Lynda, it was an abandoned hospital, and it wasn't the ghost.
Is this kind of a bit like Lynda? Now you've mentioned it, Lynda's like, why have you mentioned that?
Right, it had nothing to do with ghosts.
I thought I'd kind of, put a little light and listen there.
Yeah.
It was the roaches that she was screaming about. So
this hospital had nothing to do with in Texas. I don't know if y'all are familiar with roaches, but
yeah, I've been to Texas, and I've seen Texas roaches.
Okay, so thank you. I have been born and raised, and I do not like roaches. Never will. And if you want to hear me scream in a ghost hunt, you'll know that it's not a ghost or a voice or EVP that scared me. It is a roach that is scaring me, not a mouse, not a snake. It's a roach, that's what happened at one of the hospitals. Because none of them were inside, but when you opened the door to go outside, and we had to go outside to get to the car, the whole ground was moving.
It was a literal bath of roaches.
Yeah, and we just found that so strange. They weren't in the hospital, but they were
outside.
And so, yeah, you heard me and another really good teammate of ours, Mama C. Both of us were like screaming. I literally almost jumped on Mama C to carry me.
But yeah, so yeah, we've been.
I the same with mannequins in the dark.
We've
locations I've done where you've had a walk through during the day. Mannequin in the daytime is lovely. It's great.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, but they don't exactly make you scream, though, do you? You're like, oh God. they don't make me scream anyway.
We've done the mannequins too. We've been in places that they've had
in a dark basement. It's like, oh,
in a basement. So like, oh, okay.
Especially when you've done a daytime walk around, so you know they're there.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And then you think you're wandering around because obviously when it's dark, the location's taking a different vibe, and then you walk around a corner and you forget there's a mannequin standing there.
Yes.
You're like, oh, there we go.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly how it happens. Yes.
And you kind of question yourself as well, don't you? Like, was that mannequin there really?
Is somebody moving these things around?
Like, was that Lynda? No, I don't think that was. Lynda, was that you?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. It really has.
So was anything actually paranormal scared you both?
Anything paranormal that has scared us both?
Yeah.
Well.
Oh yeah. Most definitely probably was what was publicized. But outside of that one, I don't know if you wanted me to share that tale.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Well, after that, we were doing a lot of investigating. I had noticed a lot of change in my mood and vision and just everything in general, because I was, again, as I explained, became like the little switchboard to the other side. And we were put through a lot of experiments to kind of see where these quote spirits were lingering and who they were. And so lots of different people coming in and out. And all that pretty much had me disconnected from everybody, disconnected from the world for a while. Mm-hmm. And I just was not myself, so there we go with the influences that were, and mind you, I wasn't prepared for something so large, on a large scale, meaning the paranormal, and had no training other than religious training, and so, but that actually carried me through. So it was one night, and we were in the library, I believe, mm-hmm. and which was probably the most active of the area, because they had a psychomantium inside there and built in there. And what a psychomantium is psychologists use this for bereavement. It's a little room. It's all blacked out. You sit in a chair. You sit in front of a mirror with 2 tea light candles, and you're closed in, mm-hmm. and it becomes sensory deprivation, and you're to see spirit or contact spirits. So a form of scrying, and I knew nothing of that kind of room. I knew about scrying, but not about a psychomantium. Yeah. So, I had not gone in there for probably the first time that we visited. So they considered that as one of the portals of the place, that spirit was coming in and out. And so I was there. We were recording. I was sitting in my specific spot, and all of a sudden, I started feeling ill, and it was me and another teammate. And I remember this so vividly because it felt as if a cold hand was reaching deep inside, through flesh and bone, and was crushing my insides, is what it felt. That was the initial feeling. And that's when I heard the disembodied voice, which was, "I'll hurt you." Then it said, "I'll kill you." So me and the teammate ran out, And mind you, that was recorded and it was documented. And we ran out, and I was nauseated and all this stuff. So by that point, we went home and we kind of stayed away. It was like, okay, this is not good. This is bad. More is happening. Then I had to be rushed to a couple of days. Within that time frame, I had to be rushed to the hospital.
Yeah.
Had to have emergency surgery, and they found out that it was my gallbladder. But they had said that it was twisted and they had some complications, so I had to stay in longer during the surgery. Which the crazy part about it is, I had already done my whole physical, and we have X-rays to where there was nothing wrong the first time I did my MRI, and everything was good, But the second time, they found all these stones and it was crushed and whatever.
The doctor said it was a bag of marbles. He says you might as well just have a bag of marbles.
Is what how he described it.
And that is on record.
Yeah, it's on record.
It's one of those things like,
so it's one of those things that can be challenged, you know what I mean? But then, so in my mind at that time, I'm thinking, okay, there's the I'll hurt you part, because I just accept. And then on New Year's, the turning of the year, that's when I had my stroke. And then through that time, I just started slurring. My words were slurring, and I felt strange, and I could hear repetitively, which is terrible, was the I'll kill you. It's almost like I was awaiting it, because of that's what it's. It already hurt me. Now it wants to kill me, And so I had a stroke. And we went to the hospital again. And I vaguely remember certain things, but I do remember this bright white light is what happened in my head, like a camera flash going on. And I just remember coming to, like I had no control over my physical body, but I could hear everything around me. I could see everything around me. And that was probably the scariest night of our lives, literally. And I don't take it quite lightly, because there was so much more that happened, And during that week, they kind of, the nurses came in and, they checked everything. They're like, well, everything's safe. Everything, you're going to be good. You're going to be fine. We're going to do an EEG. And so they bring in the brain monitor thing. And so they bring in the machine. They hook it up to my head and it short circuits. That was weird. Coincidence. So she went and brought another machine. It wasn't working. So finally she brought one in and she's like, okay, well, let's try this one. And they hooked up, it looks like a little octopus with tentacles, and they clipped them all in my head and everything to record the brain waves and all that. And as they were doing that, as the nurse was doing that, my body was literally just by a couple of inches, not much, jerked up from the gurney, the bed that I was sitting in. And I could feel the pull of something just jerking me up. And so the nurse looks and she's like, okay, it wasn't a muscle spasm. It wasn't, it could be, but it was not. And that would have been probably the scariest time for us.
Yeah, it was, because not only was it the scariest time, I was also journalizing everything. Because then I started thinking, okay, wait a minute. When this all happened, I realized we got the recording. We were at the house. This happened. Then we happened to go back to the house in December. I think it was New Year's Day, to go visit. And then we went back to, and the thing is, we didn't want to go, but we knew the family. And so the family, we had a relationship with the family. So it wasn't just like, there's a relationship there. Mm-hmm. So we were there to go give gifts and just say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's. And then we were off back to the house because Victor wasn't feeling too well. And that night, that's when things happened. Mm-hmm. And I just felt, it's either a coincidence or why would this happen so many times that we're seeing a trend. So you have to question it.
You do, and there's several other cases, really harrowing cases, exactly the same as what you guys just explained about what situations that have happened, where other people have gone through similar things through shortly after investigating locations. So yes, some people out there are going to say that it's coincidence, but others are going to think there's a link between this, that, and the others. So,
right.
Horrible thing to go through.
So with all that happening, Viktor was just a week out of the hospital when we were told Ghost Adventures was going to be at the Swan, and they wanted Viktor to be there because he was one of the biggest people that would always be there at the Swan. I mean, we're family. We're there at the Swan all the time. We weren't expecting to be there. And I was like, we can't do this. He just got out of the hospital. And I was like, long story
it's
short.
Like the furthest thing from your mind
it's not
as you want to go back to
anything
place,
we wanted to do. But long story short, it was just, we had to be there. There was just it wasn't us wanting to be there. It was just at that time and moment, it was just like you have to be there. There was no other.
Well, the strange thing about that, Clarence, though, as you say, many people have, and I say this I use this in my book as well, that, to whom much is given, much is required. And with all that experience, and everything that we kind of gained, the good and the bad, it opened our eyes to things, and definitely, especially going through something that horrific. And there's no doubt in our minds what happened. I journalized, she journalized, we kept documents of everything, as I've always done as a kid. And so when we went, I remember sitting there and thinking I was only to share the evidence captured. That was it. Hi, I'm Viktor, and da-da-da-da. And go home, be on your way. And when I was there, outside the house, I didn't want to be in the house. Zach and the crew were there, and the camera started rolling, and I couldn't do it. I could not just sit there and just share, this is blah. It just didn't make any sense to me. And what happened was I was desperate for answers. I was desperate for help. And in my head and in my mind was, these people can help me. That was my frame of thinking. And then, Zach at the time was very into his persona. And then when they cut the tape, they cut the roll, and they started playing, and I started sharing again. But this time for me, it needed to be organic. If you want to know what happened, I'm going to share the real deal. And it became to where I shared my experience. And that's when everything went silent. Everyone was silent. I must say that Zach was very respectful. All of them were. They were very kind. Zach was good to us. And then that's what's now, and the rest is history, And it had it was something that, again, it happened. It was out there. And I didn't realize the impact it would have afterwards.
So obviously you it's a week after you've just got out of hospital. Was there something at the back of your mind saying, I can't do this, I can't go there? But there was an overlying of you saying, I am going to do this.
Yes, there was, because I felt that I owed it to myself. I wanted to face what did this. I didn't want to become the victim of this situation, of this spirit, whatever it was. I wanted to say, you are not going to have that control over me. You're not going to scare me off. It was my way of going back and standing my ground and saying, no, you're going to be exposed for what you are and for what you did. Yeah. So there was a battle there, and when it came out, of course, they asked for Lynda, and she was not supposed to be on because she didn't want to be on the cameras. And Zach pretty much followed her, found her, I think, walking down the driveway. And he started asking the same questions, and it correlated with the story. And he was just like, whoa, hey, this is real, Yeah. And so we're like, well, yeah, because why would we say otherwise,
would we make up? It was
and so, but yeah, it was a form of standing ground. It was a form of, I need to know what's happening. I need to know, I need to understand this, because the church is not approving right now of what I was doing. So yeah, there was a big battle there. There was a big battle between myself and the church and the people, and it was just a chaotic world and place to be in. But it was something I had to face, and still had to face afterwards, because again, it was a very short segment.
And it wasn't something that was planned to be on TV. We weren't planning to share that, and it was just something he didn't even tell me he was going to share that, as it was a surprise to me, because I don't like being on TV, period. So this was a really freak out moment. If anything, that really scared me, because it was like, wow, this is now going to be on national TV. And
I wanted people to know. It's like, you know what, if you go into this, it's not all peaches and cream. It's not all, what you think it's about.
Thrill seeking.
It's not, it's not for the thrill. For some it is, and just to use caution, and just to be aware. And again, there was so much more, there was so much more that happened afterwards.
I think that is the biggest thing that I've, through my experiences, not as bad as yours, but similar ways. When I did the show with Zach, it was for me it was facing my fear.
Yes.
And saying, you can't beat me.
Yep.
My episode was slightly different, but I had to do it. It was the first time I'd actually been back to the location since the incident that happened with myself. And I was like, right. And I was only supposed to be there for 15 minutes. And that was it. They'll do like you say, tell you about your stories, tell you about.
Right.
You do a little reconstruction, and then bye, thanks very much, and then you run back. But then he sort of snowballs, as Zach does, and he keeps on his feet. He then can see something happening that potentially that's going to be good for the show, and he's got a way of persuading you to do things without you realizing you're actually agreeing to it.
Yeah, exactly.
I completely understand that. Totally.
Yes, yeah, and so yeah. Go ahead.
So, go on, Carl.
I was going to say. So, following on from, obviously, you did that. From then to now, what have you sort of been up to from then to now?
Oh, okay. Well, both of us kind of, again, as we said, we took us about 2 years from the whole field. No contact with anybody. We left the location, never to go back. We've not gotten back since. Nor will we. And we just kind of started finding ourselves again. We went back to the church house, and we became active for a bit, just for a little bit, and which was another interesting story. But I'm sitting here with, God bless their hearts. I love them, and they're good people, and they did help me through this all. And we were both in a conference room with all the elders, and as we were sitting with the elders of the church, you're talking about, it's very intimidating, to be sitting there with these men and women, and I'm sharing exactly what I'm sharing with you guys, and everyone is just staring at me like, okay, he is crazy. He has gone cuckoo. He's gone nuts. He can no longer be here. That was the initial feeling that I kind of received or had. You know what I mean? And but the thing was, I understood. after some time, at that time, I was like, oh, nobody understands me. Nobody cares. They're mean and da-da-da-da. Yeah. It wasn't so because, I after a while being active, we stayed there and we sat under some teachings and stuff. And the bishop of the church, I understood now what he was doing. They weren't spoon feeding me, but they were, I had to get it for myself. Yeah. I had to get it for myself. I had to crawl out from that pit on my own. I had to stand my ground, because of the after effect, which a lot of people like to call touched by the devil, as an analogy. And then, we pretty much left, after a while. We stepped back out of the four walls of the church because here I had two amazing epiphanies of both the paranormal, the supernatural, the paranormal, and the rest aspect, and then the combination, and then with my background, it just kind of combined all together into one. And then we just started doing radio podcasts when we could to kind of share our truth for the stories. Yeah. Because people were like, when they see us out in public, they were like, oh my God, some people were, oh my, that's the person that was possessed or something, Yeah. It was that feeling. And I was like, oh my God,
So we felt we had to share our story. Yeah, we were like, wait a minute, what you're seeing was nothing.
And they did ask us back for the Aftershock show, but we declined because we didn't want anything to do with it any longer. Any other shows, or we wanted to remain at the time where our frame of mind was, I want to remain credible. I want to, no, it has to be this way, because we had to discover ourselves all over again. Mm-hmm. And we pretty much just relaxed for a while. And then that's when I started writing, I started writing my book, and I pitched, people were like, you need to write your memoir. What happened? And this and that. And I was like, well, that's not the route I want to go. That's not something I want to do. But I spoke to a good friend of ours, Sue Quiros, and she was Anne Rice's personal assistant for 15 plus years. And she was like, we had a sit-in, and she's like, hey, I have an undead con for authors, and it's at the Anne Rice ball. Why don't you come on over and share your book? And I was like, okay, sure, And so when I wrote the book, it was just inspired by everything that we've been through. So it's pretty much, I was like, no, I'm not going to do the whole memoir thing. It's not time for it, not ready for it. Maybe sometime way down the future. So I immersed myself in writing, and it was very therapeutic. I was able to actually literally bleed on the pages of the book. And Lynda did the same. She was alongside with me because some of those experiences are her experiences as well. And so we shared that. And it took some time, and then we just kind of did the ball, and we kind of just lived life for a little bit, and it was cool. It was cool. And then,
then we started doing a podcast. They said we had friends, and we still have friends.
Where did all the friends go? They're gone.
Our friends started telling us, how come y'all don't do a podcast? And I had thought about it and wanted to do, about it for some time. But I just didn't know how to go about it. And then I finally said, okay, let's do this. And we decided that's how the Séance Room was birthed, because we wanted it to be something that we and Viktor actually said it perfect, because when we're in New Orleans, we have
we visited New Orleans
it's like our second home away from home. It's our home away from home. So when we're in New Orleans, we always have a group of friends, and everybody has, nobody is the same. That's all I can say, because everybody's either a writer or they are into the paranormal.
It's an eclectic group of friends that we have. Because if we had like a night at the rounds table, it would be the voodoo priestess, the witch, the vampire, with all due respect to it, and then the paranormal investigators and all this stuff. So it was quite interesting. But we learn from one another.
Yes,
we learn from one another.
Normal night out in New Orleans, really.
That is a normal night. That is an absolutely normal night.
And you put it just right. So we would all sit down, and what I love about New Orleans is you can sit down, you can talk about anything weird and strange, and nobody's looking at you or listening into your conversations. Now, if you do that anywhere else, you will have people stop you'll have people like moving in to listen. But
or they may throw holy water on you.
Or they may throw holy water on you. So that's where we came up with the name, the Séance Room, because Viktor was like, you know what? He goes, let's pay tribute to what's our home away from home. He goes, and what do we always do in New Orleans? We all sit there, we talk, and we have conversation. And he goes, let's conjure up topics. And so we're like, that's perfect, because we wanted it to be a safe place where we just didn't talk about the regular everyday paranormal. We want to talk to everybody in the paranormal, because people are experiencing paranormal, not just the TV people, not just, you have your everyday normal people. And that's what we are about. We want to know about everybody out there and their stories.
Yeah. And I think that's it's a cool concept, the Seance Room, conjuring up topics that people are interested in in terms of the paranormal, because it's such a large tree with so many branches, and to discover and educate and help, most specifically, because that's always been our intent, is to help and help other people and stuff like that. It became a good thing for us. When we were asked, we were like, because we had been saying no to everything. We were like, nope, not doing that. Nope, not doing this. And we said, you know what? This would be great. This would be great, because we can share with people, and I can personally tell people, hey, we're okay.
Yeah.
The Salazars are okay. Yeah. We have lived. We've survived. We've survived the whole craziness of the media, of the spiritual part of it, and what I went through personally, and Lynda, and we are okay. And we're using this experience.
We ran away from the
we're using
paranormal. It's just we needed to get ourselves back together. We needed to heal from
because
everything.
People were still asking, hey, what's going on?
Because it's a healing process. And not only that, there was a lot of things that we saw through it all, even things that we saw people getting affected as well themselves, that hit personally for us. So when you see yourself going through, and then you see other people going through some stuff personally affecting, it's like a domino effect. And you have to tell yourself, you know what? I have to stay back, and I have to heal myself, because nobody is going to do it for me. I have to get it for myself. And that's something our pastor always says. You got to get it for yourself. So that's what Viktor and I did. We went to go get it.
We had no choice.
We had no choice.
We didn't get no baby. We weren't.
Nobody babied us.
It wasn't spoon fed. It was like, get it for yourself. But again, in essence, to that, it goes to intent. Why are you doing what you are doing? What is the path that you are taking? Are you living on purpose, in purpose, or are you just meandering about, wandering? So for us, it's like, okay, we need to get on track, because we didn't go through what we went through for absolutely nothing. I wouldn't wish it upon anybody, believe me, to go through, but it helped me help us to help others now. Because now those, as you said, that are going through similar experiences, someone can actually relate to them. And I'd say that in the book, it's like, how can one that has not had such a cancer relate to the one that does?
Correct.
It's impossible unless you've gone through it, unless you've had it. And you can relate to those emotions and those feelings and everything else. And you know what? Within that, that's where that other individual you connect with becomes free and delivered, or whatever word or term you want to use for it. That, hey, I'm not going crazy. This is true. It's just really interesting. So we started doing the show.
We'll post all the links in the chat room and on our social medias, so everybody over here can get to know you more and find out about your book and your podcast, etc. So we'll post all those. Sam?
Yeah, I've already posted the links in the chat room, but could you just let everybody know, obviously, because they'll be listening back, could you just let everybody know, like in speech, where they could catch it? Seance show?
Seance show.
The Seance show? They can, I know. They can catch it. I'm all like, the Seance show. It's called the Seance Room, and it's on Paramania Radio. parasearch.com. And we are on every Friday night from 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern till 11 o'clock p.m., except every first Friday of the month, we're on for an hour. That's when it goes from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern time. So
drop on by, and we'll conjure up topics that we can discuss
and leave. And we also have the Séance Room group, and we have the Séance Room page. The group is there for discussion, so everyone can discuss. We love to hear everybody's thoughts and views. So come on over and have a seat and share your thoughts and views.
Sounds good.
Great stuff. So obviously we have come to the end of the show, guys. Just a quick one before all of us say goodbye. Thank you everybody for tuning in. It is muchly appreciated. Thank you for the questions and the chat in the chat room. If you missed this show or any of our shows, you can obviously just go back onto Spreaker app or Wade and look at all the other shows. You can find us on YouTube as well as Parasearch Radio, and if you find us on Facebook group Parasearch Radio, the wonderful Kerry does a Monday show letting you all know what obviously we've been up to and what other shows we've got coming up. So anyway, with that said, it's a good night from me. Carl.
Thank you, and thanks guys for coming on. It's been a real pleasure, and we will definitely be getting you on again, because I feel an hour's just not long enough. We'll definitely be getting you on again, because I think there's more.
We'll be more than happy.
There's more to discuss. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Get well, Carl.
Good night and get well.
Good night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.